Absolute value a la Schmuck. A healthy sense of optimism can have a strong effect on one's psyche. No, psyche. For example, you might hear an optimistic person say, I just got a terrible haircut, but my new faux hawk will make me stand out from the crowd. Or, an earthquake just swallowed my home, but I get to be on the news. Or, an asteroid the size of the sun is hurtling toward Earth, and we have only a few minutes left to live, but at least we're all going together. See how much nicer things seem when we put a positive spin on them? Then you're just going to love absolute value. All this guy does is take negatives and turn them into positives. Of course, he also takes positives and keeps them positive. We're talking a lot of positivity. Absolute value determines how many spots away a number is from zero on the number line. You could never be a negative number of spots away from zero, which is why absolute value is always so dang positive. You can tell you're dealing with an absolute value because you'll see a number surrounded by bars on either side. It looks almost like they're in prison, or as absolute value would say, on vacation. Take any number, put it through the absolute value machine, and you'll get its true colors. Say you want to find the absolute value of the number 7. First, we put it in prison, so we know we're looking for the absolute value and not just looking at a run-of-the-mill 7. Then we can count the spaces between 0 and 7, which, surprise, surprise, is 7. It will be the same story for every single positive number, which makes our job easier. However, it's a bit different when we have a negative number. Suppose we want to find the absolute value of negative 3. First, we jail that sucker. Then we locate it on the number line. We count 3 spaces in between negative 3 and 0. So our absolute value is 3. But what if we have a number with more than one negative sign? Suppose it's been hoarding them since 1973 and has accumulated 300 of them. Doesn't matter. No matter how many times you reflect the number 3 across 0, it will always be exactly 3 spaces away from 0. Therefore, its absolute value will always be 3. Being so positive all the time can definitely lift your mood and keep you from being down in the dumps. Absolute value is about as upbeat as they come, which can actually be really annoying at times. If you tell anyone else, we'll deny it, but boy, we hate that guy.
All right, welcome to our first day of absolute value. We are going to go to our Desmos. So if you want to follow along, you are more than welcome to join me on Google Classroom. You can click on this and you can follow along on your own, make your notes if you want to, or you can just follow along and write down notes as we go along. So what is absolute value? We already saw that in our video on just a little introduction as to what absolute value is. So absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line. So this is the most important thing that we need to know, is that it's a distance. And because it's a distance, it is always going to be positive, always, always positive. So no matter what we do inside that bracket, when we take it out of the bracket, it's going to be positive. So today what we're going to be working on is evaluating expressions that have absolute value brackets in it, just to refresh our memory. I bet you've done this before, maybe a little bit last year, but we're going to get really into it this year. So our symbol looks like parallel lines from geometry. And so we give an example, it's the same example they gave us in the video, that whether you have the absolute value of 3 or the absolute value of negative 3, it doesn't matter. It's still 1, 2, 3 spaces from 0. And that is how we tell the distance of a number, is how far it is from 0. And so whether it's positive or negative, it's still a positive 3 spaces away. You can't be a negative 3 spaces away from anywhere. Okay, so keep that in mind as we move along with our notes today. And it's how you take the absolute value of a number. And then we're going to get right into examples. So I have 3 examples I'm going to go through with you, and then you will also have homework. So if you look at my board up here at the top, I have 1, 2, 3 examples I'm going to do with you. And then there are 5 homework problems here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you're going to do on your own and submit for homework for the next day. All right, so here we go. Example number 1. So solve this absolute value expression. So I'm going to evaluate this. I'm going to just go ahead and recopy this and see if it'll let me copy it. Yep. And put it down here in the box so I can just do this problem down here. And you can do the same thing. You can also do it on your own paper. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to evaluate this if X is 2. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm basically going to make a substitution. So that's step number 1, is substitute your numbers into the expression. So if you want to use this, I don't think it actually gives you an absolute value bracket down here, but if you want to, it's under the delete key, there's an actual like vertical line that you can use. You just have to hit the shift, and that's how I get that to come up. So then I'm going to go 2 times 2 minus 8. So this is how I would like you to do it as well, is I need you to show me your steps on substitution and each time you plug them in. So that way, if you do make a mistake, I can see where your mistake was made. So on your homework, don't just submit an answer of just the answer. I need to see your steps as to how you got it. Okay, so once we substitute, we want to get our absolute value bracket down to one number. So everything that's happening inside the bracket, we're going to treat that like parentheses, and we're going to get this down to one number. So in the brackets, I would do 2 times 2 first. So 2 times 2 would give me 4, and then 4 minus 8. Oops. Okay, and then 4 minus 8 gives me a negative 4. Now that I have it down to one number in the bracket, now I'm going to go ahead and take the absolute value of that number. So the absolute value of negative 4 is a positive 4. Now, step number 4 is going to occur in the next problem or two, because in the next problem or two, you're going to see that it has, there's multiple absolute value brackets. So the answer for our problem here is just 4. Okay, let's try another one. Let's go on to example number 3. So again, first step, let me copy this down here. So first step is I'm going to plug in these numbers into my absolute value bracket, into my expression. All right, so I have negative absolute value of negative 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that, let me put this math in here. All right, negative 4. I'm going to make my substitution first, and then times, or negative 2 times 6, absolute value bracket. Okay, now I'm going to get my absolute value brackets down to just one number. So I'm going to go ahead. I know what the absolute value of negative 4 is, and it's just 4. So I'm going to put 4 there, minus, and now in this bracket is going to be negative 2 times 6, which is negative 12. Now, unlike parentheses, we can't take this right here. Like sometimes in the past, we would just take this and make a plus sign out of this. If there's a negative followed by a negative, we can't do that with absolute value expressions. So be very careful with that. Instead, we have to take the absolute value first of this 12 and then continue on with our order of operations. So my next line should be 4 minus 12, because 4 minus the absolute value of negative 12, which is positive 12. So it's 4 minus positive 12. So that step right there, you really want to be careful with that. Again, first step, plug in. Second step, get your bracket down to one number and then take that absolute value of that bracket. Then continue on with your order of operations. So just be very careful of that. So then 4 minus 12 gives me negative 8. Okay, now just because this is an absolute value problem doesn't mean that everything is just going to miraculously become positive. Nope, this is not in the brackets anymore, so our answer is negative 8. We can't have negative answers. That's going to happen. We already did the absolute value brackets here. So 4 minus 12 gives me negative 8, and negative 8 is my answer. Okay, let's continue on to example number 4 and the last one. This one is probably the most complicated one that we're going to do. All right, so let me go ahead and copy and paste in here and make our first step, which is plugging in our expression with our variables, our numbers that we have. All right, so X is negative 4. So I'm going to plug in negative 4 minus 3 in a bracket, and then minus 2 times XY, X times Y, which is negative 4 times 1/2. And then plus 8 times 1/2. That's 8 times Y. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And then absolute value bracket and that minus negative 4, because it's minus sign and then X is negative 4. I'm going to put that in parentheses just so you can see. Okay, so we got a lot going on here, a lot of stuff going on here. So first step before you do anything is get those absolute value brackets down to one number. So right here, I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to get this one down to one number. Okay, then I'm going to just deal with this one and get this one down to one number. Okay, this -2, ignore that right now. And we can go ahead and change this because this is a parenthesis. I can change this to a +4. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But this 2 on the outside is nothing. We can't distribute that into the absolute value bracket. It is not a parenthesis. So do not distribute this 2. You have to get this down to one number first. Okay, so let's do that. So my next step is going to be, this will be an absolute value of -7. Absolute value of -7. And then -2. Now in this parenthesis, I'm going to have -4 times 1/2 is going to give me -2 plus, and then 8 times 1/2 is going to give me 4. And then at the end of the bracket, I have a +4. All right, so let's see what we have so far. So now, as you can see, I almost have my bracket down to one number here. So we can go ahead and take the absolute value of -7. We can take that out of the bracket now because we have it down to one number. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to take that to a +7. And then I'm going to keep this -2 because that's still there. Now this here, this is going to become the absolute value of a +2, right? Because -2 plus 2 gives me 2. So the absolute value of 2 is just 2. And because that 2 is right next to that bracket, that means multiplication. So it is going to be 2 times 2 and then +4. All right, hopefully, let me erase this. Hopefully we got everything and you are okay so far with what we have. So we back this up. Absolute value of -7 is our 7. I brought down this -2. And now -2 plus 4, that gave me a 2. I took the absolute value of 2, and that's how I got this guy. And so 2 times 2, because that's right next to the absolute value bracket, is the same as a parenthesis. It is multiplication, but you can't distribute that 2. Okay, and then +4. So now order of operations, we have to do multiplication first. So it'll be 7 minus 4 plus 4. And so 7 minus 4 is 3, plus 4 is 7. So our answer to this big, massive problem is 7. All right, hopefully that gives you enough idea and practice to try to do that, to try to figure out how to simplify an absolute value expression. So work on problems 1 through 5. You can either do the work right on here like I did, or you can do them on your own paper and submit a picture to Google Classroom. Good luck and let me know if you have any questions.